Yo, what's going on, guys? Sekapoko here, bringing you another 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross video. For this video, we're going to have a guide specifically on what characters are going to be good for maxing out for association that are currently on the global version. Now, this video is not to be meant to be watching this entirety, and of course, you can use the timestamps going to be in the description below, or of course, use the time bar in order to find the units. This is more of a reference guide for you guys to go back and see what my thoughts are on maxing units at the 6-month marker, so you have an idea of what to expect and what I think is going to be best for all of the characters that you want to go for 6 out of 6 Ultimate. This is just so you can have a good idea on it, and again, you can use the timestamps to find the correct units and what my opinions are on those specific units. So guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and go over some units that you should be really working on for association for leveling up ultimate levels. So one of the things that's really interesting right now about Grand Cross is many people have been playing the game for over 6 months, and because they've been playing for over 6 months, they have a lot of random duplicate coins for different characters. Now, if you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check out my video on SSRs you should be maxing, and to go over different character ultimates that'll give you a good idea of what rundown of which characters that you should be maxing out ultimate first. Of course, this tier list right here that is on sesgc.gg gives you a good idea of what to level up for ultimates based on a character's value as far as just a main unit. These are characters that are very good, as well as will be good for a long time, or are really good in PvP, etc., and are definitely worth maxing out in ultimate. Now, the thing we're going to be focusing on today, though, is going to be characters for associations for future units that you're going to really want to start investing into now, so that you'll be prepared in the next 3 to 4 months, so that you'll have the characters associations built out for different things that you want to do in PvP going forward. And this will give you an idea of what to expect for all those units, so that you know exactly how you should build out your units, where you should use your coins, etc., so you don't burn the wrong coins. So let's go ahead and jump into the characters. All right, now we got Zaneri, and Zaneri's ultimate's kind of cool, but like there's no reason for using Zaneri in any way, shape, or form, because she has no associations, so there's really no reason for you as a player to max out her ultimate. You really get nothing out of it besides extra ulti level on her, so there's no reason to get her association level up for that. After that, we got Jenna, and the same thing is going to be true for her. She actually has no other associations on her kit. She has marginal stats, and the only reason to max out her ulti is for increased damage on her ultimate ability. There's no major reason to max out her ulti either. All right, now let's go over Lost Vayne Meliodas. So Lost Vayne Meliodas' overall stats are a little bit worse than Escanor's as far as base stats go. And the thing with Lost Vayne Meliodas is that he actually only has a total of, I think it was 5 weapons. 4 headpieces. He just got his 6th headpiece on the JP version, and this one just came out, and it's still available only for dollars right now. And I can try to buy it in like 4 days for the other one, but essentially that's the one he gets. If you do want to only pick up a few cosmetics for him, you don't want to pick up all the cosmetics for him and max out all the cosmetics, this he does get one more UR cosmetic later on, so if you do want to max that out, it'll be easier. I'm going to end up buying the UR weapon and the headpiece here. I don't know if I'm going to buy the armor piece here. The armor piece is kind of shitty, but anyways, I digress. For association, he doesn't have any association, which is really interesting. He has very, very high stats overall, so he's a very good stat 6 support. So he's a very good unit to have 6/6 in your association, but you know, is extremely inaccessible for a lot of people to get. But he's on the banners that everyone's gonna be pulling on. So for association, he's an incredible association unit, but he doesn't have any associations. And the same is true for all of the festival characters. None of them have associations yet. Hopefully, they'll have some in the future. Now we get the waifu Red Mono, and Red Mono is a character that has really low HP, kind of mid HP, very high attack, decent defense, not the best in overall, but she has no associations either. So even though she is kind of like a really bad character right now on global, there actually is no reason to max out her associations, or ultimate for association. Next up, we got Melascula, and a lot of people ask me about this. The really weird thing about Melascula, she's a very good association for Galand for both Melasculas. If you pull the red one is just a really good unit in general, but I would say that I would hold off on actually building out this character for association unless you really wanted an attack boosting Galand support. And as far as overall stats, she has really low HP, decently high attack, and very high defense, but very low HP. All right, so this one I just want to touch on briefly, Blue Gowther. I would actually hold off on Blue Gowther because everyone and their grandma's going to max out a Red Gowther, so don't max out a Blue Gowther. There's really no point for it. He is kind of good in the new King meta to like try to counter other Kings and use a debuff sealer against those Kings, but the thing that you struggle against more often than not is trying to win on CCA versus certain teams. He's a character that you're going to have URGer anyways, and you could max out his ultimate to have like some nice pressure, but I would personally rather have the rank ups on Red Gowther anyways in PvP, and the blackout ability is kind of nice, but not really useful, you know? All right, so let's talk about a big one. This one is going to be Red and Green Escanor. So this is actually kind of a controversial choice here. Now, the reason this is kind of controversial is on global, I am maxing just the Green Escanor. On JP, I actually max both Red and Green's ultimates, and I regret it. Why do I regret it? Well, the main reason I regret doing Escanor for both versions is because I don't need it. The thing with Red Escanor that I found was really interesting is that once I got his initial copy, the duplicate copies really only served to give me more combat class. And the only other thing that you get out of it is boosting your PvP team for mono red or a Pierce comp with Red Escanor. So as far as association goes, you only really need to boost one of them. And the thing that I found that was really interesting about this game is that the green one is far more accessible than the red one, which is so weird. The Green Escanor has been on a ton of banners and will be on a lot of good banners going forward. We've also gotten a free copy of him all as a whole community because we got this selector ticket, so we got another duplicate of him there. The Red Escanor was on a really shitty banner for a lot of people and as a coin shop unit. If you wanted to pick him up for 5 coins and go for and get him every other week, you would probably be able to max him on the coin shop rotations within about 3 months if you're buying it off rotation. So if you're considering maxing a Red Escanor, I think we're at the cusp of where his viability is. He's really on the edge right now of him going from good to really mid, and he's gonna start falling off as newer units come out. The biggest unit to counter him that comes out to the game is Blue Goddess Elizabeth. So if you are gonna be using him as a supporting unit, the much easier unit, which is really weird, is the Green Escanor. So I would say that for free-to-play players and budget players, if you're gonna be maxing an Escanor for associations or in general, the association for him is only for Galand, Melascula, and Camilla. The Camilla one is nice though, right? You could do that. I usually use Escanor as a supporting unit, as just a basic stat stick, because he is an incredible unit to have as his overall HP, attack, and defense, and he's a very strong unit to just max out for your main team. So I personally, on Global, I'm only maxing the green one, and I'm actually saving my coins. I have like 50 coins right now on Global, and I'm not maxing my Res Escanor on purpose because I do not want to build him out. And I actually have a 5-6 right now on Global with only pulling 1 copy of him on his original banner. So I know that many people will be able to get over the course of large amounts of time, you'll be able to get more and more dupes of him. And if you're wondering, I don't think he was on that Monspeet banner, so I think I think a lot of people can have a lot more higher chance of getting him. All right, and the last 2 units I'm going to go over here for these 2 are going to be Green and Red Derieri. The Green Derieri is a PvP unit that does kind of fall off, and her passive ability is really nice. The associations for her are only going to be Goddess Elizabeth and Monspeet. So you will need to have 1 Derieri maxed out for Goddess Elizabeth or 1 Demon Meliodas maxed out. Personally, what I choose to do is use Demon Meliodas on my Goddess Elizabeth about half the time. If I'm using Goddess Elizabeth with another character that requires Demon Meliodas support, I end up having to use my Derieri support in order to do something else. So, for a Derieri support, I end up maxing out the red one because over time, I've gotten a lot of different duplicates of this character. Derieri is on the Lost Vayne Meliodas banner on the Japanese version and was on the Goddess Elizabeth banner for the Japanese version, so I was able to get a large amount of duplicates of her in those banners. Also, in the course of many months of getting part 2 tickets, etc., I actually did max out my Red Derieri. I didn't pull on any banner for her specifically, and even on the commandment banners, I never pulled a copy of her. So over time, you will have enough to max out your Derieris. I would just say max out the red one for ultimate, not the green one, even though the green one is a coin shop unit, because the green one doesn't really have a ton of viability and content besides the ability to roll back ultimate gauge and the ability to fill ultimate gauge on her own. She has an a really high stat set as well, so she's an amazing association unit, but the red one is definitely more accessible to more players for the ultimate level, and the ultimate level has more than one use. So definitely go with the red Derieri versus the green Derieri for ultimate level. All right, now the first unit in the list that a lot of people have already started maxing out since the launch of the game, and of course you should max out if you haven't done so and is available in the coin shop, is going to be red SSR Arthur. And the reason you want to max him out is because he's in association with two characters that are going to be coming out in the future. Both red and the blue Arthur are associations for these characters, and they're going to be associations for, of course, any of the Merlins you have, but of course, Zeldris. So if you do max out a red SSR Arthur and you do want to get him maxed out, that is a very, very good thing to do for maxing out his ultimate for a Zeldris support. So if you are looking to do that in the future, that is a very, very nice thing for him for resistance. But Zeldris too has two other supports that are for Demon Meliodas, and the other support for Zeldris is, I believe, Green Elizabeth. I'm not sure, but Demon Meliodas is the other one that's primary that people use to get attack for him. You can max out either the blue Arthur or the red Arthur. It doesn't matter which one you max out. Just make sure to max out one. The red Arthur is much easier to max out, whereas the blue Arthur is primarily just a unit that you can use in Red Demon for clearing Red Demon very quickly. And you can use him in PvP. He does have some viability there with Green Easton as well as currently for ulti rush teams, but he's obviously not the best unit in the game. He just has some viability there. He's a very good free-to-play unit. Overall, strong unit. I recommend building him. If you do get a lot of dupes, go for it. You can see where it takes you. Eventually, you get a lot of dupes for him. It's a really nice character to get free dupes on. Next up, we got the blue and green bonds. Both a blue Brawler Ban and green Brawler Ban. What's really interesting about these characters for blue Brawler Ban is that he gets a new cosmetic, as you can see here, and lots of other support. But his associations are Demon Meliodas, Helbram, as well as Elaine, Benny Morrow, and the new Easton. But unfortunately, the thing that he provides is regeneration rate. And then the thing about regeneration rate, if you didn't know, is a lot of characters have very low regeneration rate right now. In Global, this is the symbol for regeneration rate right here. And the reason they have really low regeneration rate is because with Super Awakenings, if I go to any character with a Super Awakening, let's just go to Goddess Liz right here, the regeneration rate starts to go up a little bit. And if I go to a character that came out even further than that, let's say, let's go with the newest Mono. Mono has a total of 45% regeneration rate. And if we go to another character, like, let's go to Camilla or something. That was another character that came out. She has another 37% regeneration rate. So regeneration rate becomes this thing that a lot of people get nowadays on the Japanese version, and you can actually get a lot of it. The problem is that regeneration rate, it seems really bad, but the more of it you get, it really starts to ramp up if you don't get a kill on that turn. And I've seen people regenerate like 30% of their total max HP whenever they their turn starts, and that can like save people from death and then give you a really big turnaround. So regeneration rate might be this cool thing you can play around with, but for blue Easton, it's not really a really good thing to do. And then Demon Meliodas, he doesn't really need it because of the lifesteal mechanics on him, because of how much he can lifesteal with his hits. So either one of these, I'm not really sure if I recommend. For blue Easton and green Easton, both of these characters have very low lifesteal, so it would be an interesting thing to do to see this character use regeneration rate to get some healing in. But to be honest with you, I'm not really a fan of him for any type of association, so I think you can skip maxing his ultimate. All right, next up we got green Nunchuck Ban, red Nunchuck Ban, and blue Nunchuck Ban. Now, all three of which, of course, are very interesting characters right now for the global version, because all three of which are associations with, you guessed it, of course, Lost Vayne Meliodas, and they give him lifesteal, which is really, really nice for him. The other thing is that you can use Zeldris to get lifesteal for him too, so that's a very interesting thing. The other characters that you can actually have association with for him are going to be Hawk, as well as Estarossa, Simon, Fat King, and Jericho, all of which give lifesteal for all of those characters. And it's a very interesting unit to use with all of them. However, green Nunchuck Ban, as far as a unit to max out, there are a few of them you can do. You have the Coin Shop Ban, we have the red Ban, and the blue Nunchuck Ban. What's really weird about the Japanese version versus the global version is on the Japanese version of AP is that red and blue Nunchuck Ban are on the Part 2 banner. Whereas on global, red Nunchuck Ban is this really weird enigma, where red Nunchuck Ban, I believe, is on the Part 1 banner. Here we are on the part 1 banner, and there he is, red Nunchuck Ban on the part 1 banner. So the weird thing is on JP, it's very different to max out red Nunchuck Ban, but global, we have this weird opportunity to actually max out a red Nunchuck Ban at a very, very insignificant cost because of how often you get the Nunchuck Ban copies. On the Japanese version, many players did not max out red Nunchuck Ban because he's only on part 2, so it's much more difficult to get him maxed out. Whereas blue Nunchuck Ban is in a similar boat, but he's on the Lost Vayne Meliodas banner, so many players may have copies of him. If you ended up pulling a lot of copies in the Lost Vayne Meliodas banner, go for the blue Nunchuck Ban or the red Nunchuck Ban if you just want to use the part 1 one. My recommendation though is do not max out Coin Shop Ban. The reason you don't want to max out Coin Shop Ban is because the Coin Shop dupes that you're going to be getting would be better served for other units that are going to be coming out in the future or for Super Awakenings than maxing out this unit. It would be much more efficient for you as a free-to-play player or a budget player if you're going to be maxing out the red Nunchuck Ban. And if you're kind of a whale, you probably have a lot of dupes right now of the blue Nunchuck Ban, and this is the character you probably should max out. He's on a part 2 banner and is a much more efficient unit for whales to max out. So between the two, I would say whales are on blue Nunchuck Ban, whereas free-to-play players are on the red Nunchuck Ban. So on another note for Deathpierce, this is kind of like a caveat, just like not really related to this video, but I just want to put it out there. My Deathpierce is at 5 out of 6 ultimate right now on JP and 6 out of 6 on global. Is he worth maxing out for association? He literally has none. He is not associated with any unit. However, he's a really good unit to max out in general just for other crit teams. If you do want to run a crit cleave team, he's kind of a staple in those teams. If you want to run ulti rush of those teams, he's kind of what you can do. But if you do want to run a crit cleave team at any point, you are going to need to max out his ultimate so you can get more combat class. That's the only reason you should max out Deathpierce if you are going to be running the team. Free to play, you should probably stay away from maxing this out unless you really want to focus on that as far as a PvP strategy with Green Easton and try to use that effectively. That course kind of dies, the crit cleave team kind of dies out around the time of the new Blue King because of how much crit resistance characters start getting after that point. So my recommendation is if you're going to be using Deathpierce, it is a short-lived thing. It doesn't last forever. It will last from right now at the time of Lost Vayne Meliodas all the way till the Blue King meta, and will start dying out pretty heavily at that point. All right, next in the list, we got blue Matrona Diane with the physics. All right, no, not Matrona, the giant Diane. So there's 3 different Dianes to max out right here. We have the blue Matrona Diane and the green Matrona Diane. But if you didn't know, there is a top tier PvP unit that actually comes later on the Droll banner, and a lot of people are going to be asking me about should I pull on the Valentine banner or not. And one of the units that actually comes for a repeat Valentine banner on the JP version was the red giant Diane, and the red giant Diane came out after the final boss Diane, etc. And this is a unit that helps support Droll. I don't have her on the screen right now, but essentially this unit is another Diane that you could max out. If you're free to play though, I wouldn't say that you're not going to be able to max this out, but if you are a whale, this would probably be the giant Diane that you should max out. If you don't want to max out a giant Diane right now, whales should definitely focus on this Diane. She's much better than the other two. If you're free to play, the most budget option is going to be this green Matrona Diane who is on the part 1 banner. She's going to be the easiest for you to max out, but she is a very bad unit and is only going to be helpful for association. Whereas the blue Matrona Diane, blue giant Diane is actually a good unit and is usable in PvP currently. If you even in the Lost Vayne Meliodas meta, I'm able to use this unit at 6 out of 6 ultimate and still win about 70-80% of my matches, depending on the week in ungeared PvP. So this is a very strong unit. And the reason this character is really good to max out for association for future units is it's a very good association, of course, for King, for the for him for defense. You get one for Liz for recovery rate. But the 2 ones that are really good is the Fate combo for the normal Meliodas, which sounds weird, but if you ever want to use a melee team, it's hilarious. It gives defense to Monspeet, which is kind of weird. But the big one is Droll. So Droll is a character that's going to be coming out much later on. And if you do want to max out a blue giant Diane, this also gives a this actually gives 340 defense to Droll. However, the red giant Diane has to be on the team, which also gives you a 40% boost to your damage for giants. So, is the blue giant Diane worth maxing for free-to-play players? The answer is going to be, if you're going to be using her on a PvP team currently in the current meta, that would be a fun thing that you could be doing at max ultimate if you do have it. However, if you are going to be using a giant team in the future, the unfortunate thing is red Giant Diane is the character that you need to have on your team, and maxing her for a blue Giant Diane or a green Giant Diane for association for Droll is actually going to be very inefficient going forward. So I do not recommend it doing for Droll, but I do recommend it if you are thinking about doing it for a Meliodas association or possibly a Monspeet association to use for your characters. Otherwise, this is kind of a skip character as well, so you do not need to max out blue Giant Diane or green Giant Diane as a free-to-play player. And Whale should be focusing on red. All right, next up we have blue SSR Lizhawk. Now, blue SSR Lizhawk is one of those characters that is, a lot of people have 6 out of 6 at this point on the global version, and is a character that many people are going to have going forward. Or the association for this character are for Derieri as well as Lost Vayne Meliodas. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, Nog had asked me a long time ago while he was streaming and doing this thing, trying to do a solo run with Derieri, if Derieri, if recovery rate affects lifesteal. It does. So the association that you get with blue Lizhawk is recovery rate across the board, which will then help boost your lifesteal for different characters like Derieri or potentially Meliodas. So if you're looking to do some kind of lifesteal types of runs with Derieri in the future, if you haven't seen it, Nog put out a video a long time ago about solo Derieri, and he did solo unit versus Crimson with Derieri with Lizhawk association. He's having a lot of trouble before he started using this for lifesteal. So this is the character that will help you get some recovery rate on different characters. Is it worth maxing, though, for an association? Most people, 90% of people, 95% of people, currently the answer is no. Blue Lizhawk is not really a character you need to max out. All right, next up we got green, red, and blue Elizabeth. Now, all of which are characters that you can get at some point somewhat easily. The red one I got on the screen right now, but so the green, red, and blue Elizabeth they're all resistance associations or lifesteal associations. So if we go looking at the characters here, we got green Meliodas, we got demon Meliodas, we got Monspeet, Rimuru, Hendrickson, Jillian, Zaneri, Hawk, Mikasa, Hendrickson. So there's a ton of characters to max out there. And the new Demon Hendrickson is a resistance support for this character. So the other association with this character, of course, is Green Meliodas for the Hendrickson. So if you're, and the weird thing I've seen is that, like, the Liz for Green Elizabeth, Red Elizabeth, and Blue Elizabeth. The Blue Elizabeth is on the Part 2 banner. The Red Elizabeth is only available right now, and as well as on the Valentine banner, or the limited banners going forward. And the Green Elizabeth is a very, very common unit that a lot of people do have, as well as a very easy unit to obtain on Part 1. Probably the easiest to max out, but many people have burned her coins. So as far as a unit, should you max this unit out? My personal take is, even though we have all these associations, I have never really once wanted to have a resistance association. And the other major issue with Elizabeth is weapons. So when she first released in the Japanese version, she had no weapons, and the only way that you can get weapons for her right now are these 4 weapons. And she doesn't have any other weapons that have come out, and she hasn't gotten any weapons in over a year. But she has a ridiculous amount of SSR UR cosmetics on JP. So lots of headpieces as well, lots of free-to-play headpieces that you can acquire, lots of normal cosmetics that you can get as well. Just look at how many you got there. It's ridiculous amount of cosmetics for her for free. But for weapons, though, you don't get a lot. And because you don't get a lot of weapons for her, she has a really low attack value, making it so it's a really hard thing for her to be a good supporting unit. And supporting units usually have good stats as well as resistance values. So my overall thought is no. But on the counterpoint to that, you are going to be building a UR set for Elizabeth eventually. This is going to be HP in defense or attack in defense for your goddess Elizabeth. And because that's the case, you might have an association for Elizabeth might be better. However, for Super Awakening for this Elizabeth, if we go down to her actual stats that she gets for Super Awakening, she gets really low main stats as far as overall stat gain. She gets decent defense, really low HP gain, and not really great on crit chance or crit damage, so not really a good unit for Super Awakening in general. So my overall thought for her going forward is no, she is not worth maxing out for Ultimate for association for any variation of Elizabeth. I personally say no. but if you want to, I'm not going to stop you, and it could work out. All right, next up we got Estarossa, both red and green. Which one should you max out if you should max one out? So this one's kind of weird. So Estarossa as a unit. Green Estarossa is obviously the better version of Estarossa. If you're using him right now in Global and you like him, you're having fun with him, he's a coin shop unit, you can easily max him to the coin shop, etc. I love a lot of people like, oh, Burr Estarossa, I love Estarossa. So, which Estarossa should you max out? Well, for associations, he's only associated with Zeldris and Fraudrin. And he gives crit damage to Zeldris, and he gives crit damage to Fraudrin. This is a character that quote-unquote never crits, KW, and you can use Demon Meliodas for association for attack, and this is a unit for this. So should you 6-6 Estarossa? Fuck Estarossa. Next up, Green Daddy Fraudrin, Big Whalen. He's not associated with anybody. KW. Well, I don't know why they did him so dirty. Like, literally the most expensive unit on Global, and he's not associated with anyone. The fuck, Netmarble. All right, next up, we got Red SSR Gilthunder. So this is a weird one. So there's a lot of people are going to have SR Gilthunder already maxed out, right? And the green SR Gilthunder is a way easy version for this character to max out. However, what I did notice is a few different things for this for Gilthunder. So we were doing some looky-loo through a lot of different things a couple days ago for Gilthunder. And what we noticed is that red Gilthunder gets a fuckload of stats. Like an absolute mad lad amount of stats out of his Super Awakening. And his base normal stats, he has really low HP, but he's making up for it right now with the amount of extra stats he gets on Super Awakening. Really low defense, but kind of making up for it on Super Awakening, and kind of mid attack. You know, compare it to say Estarossa here. Where's Estarossa here? Estarossa at 560, 380, and 6700. Meliodas at 7k, etc. The difference between the two, as you can see, is mainly from the attack and HP, but the amount of stats you're getting from the main stats for Gilthunder kind of makes up for the total overall stats that you would get on him. And he has a lot of cosmetics. The thing about Gilthunder that I think is really interesting for the red Gilthunder is because since he gets so much stats, and you can actually have a green Gilthunder for association is a really good unit. The UR set for him would not be like totally wasted because you're using it for green Gilthunder anyways, and you use it for Valenti style comps, etc. You get resistance on his association for Howzer, which is kind of a dead unit on Global right now, and is definitely a dead unit on JP. Is a resistance support for green Lizhawk, also a kind of a dead unit, but is a really good support for Lizhawk because of how much resistance you get out of it. Kind of cool. It is an attack support for Hendrickson, not all the Hendricksons, just the normal Hendricksons. Feels bad. Resistance support for Griamore, and a resistance support for Zaratros. I think with Zaratros, if you didn't see my video for Zaratros, go check him out. I think with Zaratros, he gets association with only Gilthunder as well as a good support. So, I mean, that's cool. As far as a stat stick goes, he's really good. But as far as the characters he's associated with, unfortunately, that's an issue. However, as a caveat, one of the things that was a really interesting unit going forward was green Meliodas as well as blue Meliodas, etc., and a lot of the other units that are in between. Now, the thing with Gilthunder is that he's a prevalent character in the story, and he really hasn't come in with any new versions. He might have a version of him, or might have an association in the future that might be with a future Howzer or a different character that might be insanely strong for a future unit. So keep him in your back pocket. If you do want to max this unit, he is a free-to-play unit. They max out with gold coins, so it is a very inexpensive unit to max on the Part 1 banner. So if you are considering maxing him out, I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it might be a good idea later on because of how much stats he gets. He's not going to get a ton of stuff, but he might be a good one later on. So keep it in your back pocket. If you kind of want to make the investment for the future, sure. But right now, the answer is no, but maybe. Just heads up. Next up, we got green Griamore. Don't laugh. He matters, right? He matters. Shut up, chat. He matters. No, he matters. Okay, so Super Awakening for Green Griamore. So Green Griamore gets a little bit less HP from his Super Awakening than what's it called? Gilthunder. A little bit less attack too, but it's still an extremely high amount of stats that he gets from his main stats. He doesn't get enough to actually cut the difference between some other characters, but he does get a decent amount of stat gains on his Super Awakening. And the normal version of him has weapons that you can pick up. And of course, this says weapons, you get a little bit more attack on him, so you can potentially have some damage on him and then get some damage for supports, whatever. But is Griamore worth it? So let's look at fourth future. The answer is actually kind of weird. So his associations are for Gilthunder, Howzer, Dreyfus, Elizabeth, but the big two are Red Giant Diane and Green Fraudrin. Now, if you don't know about the Red Giant Diane is an exceptional unit in the future for Droll teams. Now, we just went over it previously on Red Giant Diane as far as the best unit for whales to max out. So if you are a whale and you are going to be using Red Giant Diane, best association for her is going to be Green Griamore. So if you are a whale and you haven't maxed out your Griamore yet, but you're considering it, the answer is yes. If you are going to be using a Diane team in the future with Droll, it's a hard yes. Definitely worth maxing. For Fraudrin, I believe Griamore gives the most amount of stats that you can get in ungeared PvP, and I think he gives the most amount of stats for geared PvP too. I'd have to check for Fraudrin what the best one is, but I think it's Griamore. I'm not 100%, but I think he gives the most amount of stats. He's definitely worth for whales. Free to play, hard skip. Don't do it. Budget players, hard skip. Don't do it. These two units are Megalodon whale units, both of which, if you're free to play or a budget player, you can kind of skip. Not really worth doing. But if you're a whale and your level whale is kind of like interesting and you're kind of thinking about doing these units here, it's Gucci. All right, next up we got Red Guila, and Red Guila is a unit that has really shitty associations, except for Jericho and Gilthunder and Howzer. So you get it on the JP version. We actually got the free-to-play Guila. We actually, if you didn't see it, I put out a Super Awakened Guila showpiece, which is Uberkek W. If you want to check that out, that is a free-to-play 6 out of 6 Guila that we got for the Halloween Guila. The Halloween event is coming right around the corner, so I just wanted to put her up on the screen so you can kind of see what the associations are for her and see if she's worth it. She actually, on her Super Awakening, got decent stats too, which was really funny, and then some crit chance and crit damage, but her like base crit chance and damage is kind of weird and low. So overall, was it worth it? I mean, for Jericho, it's cool. I mean, no. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it at all, but it was fun. So who cares, right? It's free 6 out of 6 ulti. I don't know if we're going to get the same 6 out of 6 ulti on the global version. However, if we do get it for free, yeah, just do it. Max out our ulti, go for it. Don't do the red one. The red one's useless. You never use the red one for anything. The green one is free. If you get it, you get it, and it's all good. Otherwise, the blue Guila is the best version of all the Guilas. All right, next up we got Helbram. And the thing with Helbram is I've actually maxed my Helbram on global, but not on JP. But the reason I maxed my Helbram was for Final Boss Merlin. Helbram gives regen to everyone on association, so he's a trash tier support. He also has really low stats. He only gives about 6,000 HP. He has really high attack, very low defense. So overall, for as a support, Helbram is one of the worst supporting units that you can use for defense and HP, but gives a decent amount of attack. So if you're looking for an attack support, sure. But if you're looking for defense or HP, oh my god, please no, don't do it. You're not getting enough CC. And he only gives regen to anyone he gives association to, and it's a trend for the entirety of all the Helbram associations. So stay away from all the Helbrams, not worth doing at all. All right, next up we got Jericho. For all the versions, we got green, red, and blue Jericho. And we also have the SR versions, etc. So Jericho, for her associations, she has Guila, of course. She is really good for book farming for that Guila. And a lot of whales already have her 6/6, so we can kind of like not go over it for whales. But pretty much every whale in the game has 6/6 green Jericho. Blue Jericho is kind of cool. The red Jericho. Oh wait, there is no red Jericho. There's no red SSR Jericho. Why is there no red SSR Jericho yet? We'll see. Anyways, So she gives association of Fat King, Twiggo, Gustav, and Nunchuck Ban, as well as Guila. Not worth maxing at all at this point. In this game, we're way too deep in it. So if you're a new player to the game, should you max out Jericho? The answer is no. She is a fate combination with Nunchuck Ban, but he's a very unused unit in the game, so I would not recommend using him. Gustav association, good for final boss, for guild boss before Derieri. She's definitely not a maxing unit right now, so just skip her. Next up, we got Howzer. And Howzer on his Super Awakening is dog shit. He really gets nothing out of it. Just crit chance, crit damage, and some minor stat gains. But Howzer's main stats are like extremely mid-range, decently high defense. He's associated with a lot of different characters. On every character that he's associated with, though, he gives HP. One of the units that he gives most important right now for the global meta, of course, is Green Matrona Diane. And this is a combination attack unit to give you an extra 1,000 combat class. So if you do want to max it out for her, that would be an interesting unit to use. But this is mainly for whales. A lot of people already have a 6 out of 6 Howzer, though. But at this point in the game, should you go for a 6 out of 6 Howzer? No. If you haven't started working on your Howzer and you are a free-to-play player, do not max your Howzer unless you are planning to use a Matrona Diane in PvP. There is absolutely no reason for you to max out a Howzer. Please, if you are free-to-play, do not max your Howzer. If you are a budget player, do not max your Howzer. It is a waste of resources. Don't do it. Let the coins go by the wayside. It's not a good association for anyone. The only things that you get about it is Gilthunder support, who gives a fuck, and Matrona Diane support, only good for whales. If you're not going to be using those characters, then don't max your Howzer. If you are a whale, go for it. Who fucking cares? All right, Blue King. Do it. 100%. Worth it. So Blue King is a great association in the future, and it gives a lot of main stats to a lot of different characters. Totally worth doing. Don't max out. The reason I want to bring up Blue King is Green King and Red King. Don't max your fucking Green King if you're a free-to-play or budget player. It's super not worth. He is a trash tier unit. I'm sorry. If you haven't seen it yet, I put out a video between Zaratros and Blue King. Zaratros is so much better than Green King. The reason I want to go over King for association is you're already going to max a Blue King for PvP for most players. We're talking about 90% of players are going to max a Blue King at some point. Even if they're not going to max him right away, they're going to max him at some point. Do not max a Green King for free-to-play and budget. It is not worth it. However, if you're a whale, go for it. Whatever. You can do what you can do. It's not really good for association for a lot of different characters, but it is good for, of course, the association for Gowther. And it is a really big stat stick. So he has a very high amount of stats on his kit. So I would say that he's a very good unit to max no matter what, but skip Green King altogether if you are free to play or budget. And even if you're a whale, Green King is kind of a shitty unit for the demon right now. So a lot of whales in my chat and a lot of people that I've talked to don't even use Green King anymore because it's just not worth the investment of using all that investment into Green King for something that's not going to be good for the future and is going to get outscaled by other characters anyways. So Fat King, next up. So this is a weird one too. So Fat King, for free to play and budget, obviously this is kind of a no because, fuck that, it's Fat King. But his stats are interesting. He's actually got really close stats to the Blue King. So if you go to Blue and Red King, you can see like 520, and this one's at like 528 for attack. This one's at 300, and then this one's at 297. This one's at 6600, and now this is at 6500. So it's really close to the stats on the other King. Now, the thing with this King is that he gives HP as a supporting unit, and he's actually an association unit for some really interesting units in the future. The first one of which is Roxy. So if you end up wanting to use a Roxy in PvP, he gives HP to Roxy. And if you do want to use Roxy in PvP, Roxy's a great unit on the new King team and is decent on Pierce team. It's not really that great, but decent. Mostly, I've been using her for the new King team, and she claps out on that team. She's insanely good. Also, an interesting association for Gloxinia, giving HP to Gloxinia. So if you plan on using a red Gloxinia or a Roxy in the future, that is an interesting unit for those. But if you are a free-to-play player, this is a hard skip. But for whales, these are two units that you might be using in the future. So keep this in your back pocket as an idea for either Blue or Green King for the Fat Kings. So if you do get a lot of dupes for him, if you plan on using either of these units, it's an interesting unit to use. All right, now we're on the number one unit for the video. This is literally the reason I wanted to make the video in the first place. This character, Green Meliodas. This is a must max for everyone. The reason this is a must max for everyone, which is like, what? 6 out of 6, what? Green Meliodas is a must max. Why is he a must max? this. Just this. Just this. Green Meliodas. Worth. Okay? He's worth. All right, so he's association with Hendrickson, Ludociel, Mikasa, Levi, Aaron, pretty much anyone that comes to the game for a collab. And we might be having, you know, a King of Fighters collab, so Meliodas probably in there or something, you know? We got one for Deathpierce, if you plan on using him. Arthur, Giant Diane. Fuck, just do it, dude. Green Meliodas. 100% mux match for every single person in the game, okay? Eventually, if you are 6 months in the game, you should start working about this, or you should have already been working on this. This is a character that is a must max unit. You can use blue Meliodas, or if you want to, for SR Meliodas. If you're a newer player, if you're in the first 3 months of the game, you really don't want to use his coins on him, totally fine for use blue Meliodas. However, if you broke the 6 month marker in the game, definitely worth maxing him. He's super worth. 100%. Ludociel, big unit here. Hendrickson, big unit you're using for. Mikasa, big ass unit on global. Super good unit to max for association. If you haven't done it already, do it. All right, next on the list, we got Demon Meliodas for red, blue, and green Demon Meliodas. Now, all three of which have very similar, if not identical, substats across the board. And for Super Awakening for Demon Meliodas, let's take a look. He gets a very decent amount of HP. He gets a really good amount of attack and defense, so he is a very good unit for association. He has very high base stats as far as overall Super Awakening stats go, and has decent stats to start with going forward. So he's a very good unit for association. The characters he's going to be using for association are going to be, of course, Green Merlin if you've done it before. Then we, of course, have Bellion, a lot. Galand, Derieri, the big one, the biggest one in the game is, of course, Derieri. Zeldris, Elizabeth, Shin, the new Lilia, a ton of different units. So the question:
Can I buy Howzer's weapon for gems?
So which one of the three should you match between the three? Red Demon Meliodas, Green Demon Meliodas, or Blue Meliodas? So Green Demon Meliodas, of course, is on the current banner right now. This is a hard no for 99.9% of players, unless you somehow luck sacked fucking 6 copies of Green Demon Meliodas before you get the Valentine units. I don't know who that happens to, but it could happen to you. If it does happen, great, max him, whatever. Then you don't have to do the other two. All right. Red Demon Meliodas. Now, Red Demon Meliodas is kind of an enigma. Like, if you do pull on coin shop banners and you do get dupes of him, he's a very cheap unit to max as far as overall maxing units. Blue Demon Meliodas is obviously a better unit overall, and it's probably the best unit you should be using. Now, the choice between the two is, like, which one should you max between the two, Red Demon Meliodas or Blue Demon Meliodas? Well, Blue Demon Meliodas, if you use Pierce teams anytime going forward for the next 3 months, he's still a very good unit. Blue Demon Meliodas is the primary unit you should be maxing. However, if you're unlucky and you feel like you're not getting a lot of dupes for him, I would definitely say that Red Demon Meliodas is a good route to go. My Red Demon Meliodas on JP is 6 out of 6 ultimate, and I did a video on his ultimate damage as far as what you can get out of it for Hell Demons versus Derieri, and it's nowhere near enough damage, or even close to enough as much damage as Derieri, but of course I don't have him Super Awakened, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference for Super Awakening between the two. Like a 6 out of 6 ultimate should one-shot regardless, and it didn't even come close. It did like half the HP bar. I don't think it's going to do full HP bar if you max him. Overall, Demon Meliodas, the Red Demon Meliodas is a very shitty unit, and the only thing you're going to use him for is association. So should you max this one? The only people that should max the Red Demon Meliodas are people that are not getting any dupes of the Blue Demon Meliodas over a long period of time. You should consider it because it's a much easier thing to max. I actually had the Red Demon Meliodas maxed out for 2 months before I actually maxed out my Blue Demon Meliodas. So the investment was kind of short-lived. But I did have an investment for 2 months that actually was able to use for association for Derieri, and able to do that. But I'm also a content creator. It's a little bit different. I'd say that Red Demon Meliodas is not really worth it. But if you are very, very unlucky, you can do it. It's fine. But blue is probably the preferred option. All right, so next up we got Merlin. And there's, of course, the red, blue, and green versions of Merlin, and people are asking which one to get. So, of course, a lot of people have the blue Merlin for free because we got it during the 100-day event for free. Red Merlin is a part 1 unit that a lot of people have, and, of course, green Merlin. My personal opinion, of course, is you should max out the green Merlin for association if you're going to be using it, because, of course, the list is very long, and a lot of units, of course, you will use Merlin in the future, and it's definitely worth maxing. This is a character that you do want 6 out of 6 regardless, no matter what. Red Merlin, kind of a skip. She's really good right now in the meta for global and very, very fun. You can use her on JP and she does slay out a little bit, but she's not that great. I mean, she's okay. I mean, she falls off. She's really good right now in global. I mean, it's like playing out around with her, but like her time ends. And then ulti rush is timeless. So you're always going to have ulti rush teams. It's always going to be good. Just max the green Merlin. Don't max the other ones. All right, now we got green and red Monspeet. Only associated with Derieri. However, the thing with green and red Monspeet is if you wanted to use either of these characters, the weird thing about Monspeet is like this is like a no, like a big no, but also kind of a yes, but also a no. Pretty much a no, but yeah, also a yes, but kind of a no. But pretty much a no, but also a yes. Okay, so the reason it's kind of weird is because he really gets a high defensive value and not really a lot of HP at his Super Awakening, and not a lot of attacks. There's not really a good association for Derieri. He doesn't really bring a lot to the table for her. But he is an attack-based support that you could use for Derieri. There are situations where you can't use Demon Meliodas and Monspeet for association. So if you're a whale, still no. But yes, but kind of no. But yes, but no. All right, next up we got Blue Slader. So this is one I haven't even checked out. So Slader on his Super Awakening gets mid stats. Overall mid, just not like a lot of craziness, just overall mid-rate average. He's just full average. His base stats are high, so he gets high attack, very low defense, exceptionally low defense, and decent HP. For associations, he's got Hugo, Gowther, and Arthur. This character doesn't really need attack. This character you could use for attack, but I think you would be way better off using a Meliodas, and it's a more efficient thing for more players to go with the green Meliodas because it'll be used for more units. If you do want to max out a Slader, sure, I guess, but I say no because the stat gains from him are really bad in comparison, and it's really mid on the overall stat gains for Super Awakenings. Plus, it's another character to buy cosmetics for. Gotta go like he's bad. Just don't do it. All right, so next up we got Valenti, and Valenti is a character that a lot of people are seeing nowadays with Hell Demons and exactly like using her a lot. People are seeing how strong she is, and she's standing the test of time. Actually, making a PvP video for Valenti. I made it today. It's really fun. She actually still holds up on JP, which is cool. So her reign has been long. For associations, she has none, which is really weird. I did not expect this for an original character, but she's the only OC, or like one of the few OCs that has no association. So I'm not quite sure why she has no associations, but she has none. So I'm very surprised. Overall stats-wise, she's low on HP, really high in defense, and on Super Awakening, she gets good stat gains too. So, I mean, I'm just weirded out. All right, next up we got the waifu Blue Lilia. Of course, a lot of people are going to be maxing here for Pierce teams. You're using her because you want to level up her association, so you can do this stuff. For her, she's association with Easton, Valenti, Mono, Shin, and Camilla. So she gets a lot of good associations going forward. For stats overall, she gets overall good stats that you get gains here. For Super Awakening for her, I think she gets some good stats too. Let me go check on the green Lilia, wherever she may be. I believe she gets some good stats on Super Awakening. Yeah, she gets really, really good stats on Super Awakening. Very, very good stats. So definitely worth maxing for the green or blue Lilia. You get a stupid amount of HP, very high attack and defense. So very much worth going for a 6/6 on the red Lilia or the green Lilia. Super good for blue or green Lilia for stats. 100% worth. If you can max out the blue one or the green one, definitely do the blue one because blue one's better. But of course, a lot of people are going to have Pierce rolls on their blue one if they're going to go with HP defs. So my recommendation, if you're not going to be using a Pierce team going forward, I recommend for your UR set, you can now transition from a Pierce set on your Lilia to an attack set if you really want to start using her going forward. Pierce is kind of less relevant now. However, it's still good and will still be good on JP going forward. It's starting to come back on JP a little bit now. You could potentially re-roll your attack substats on your Lilia, or your substats to attack. It's at this point is fine to do so. Or you make another bracer, a set of bracers. And that's another option you can do. If you haven't done a UR set for Lilia and you're considering it, that's an option for you. I'm just letting you know that is something you could do for an association for Lilia. If you're starting to start using her association a little bit more, it's really good. It's also extremely good for her healing ability, so definitely consider it. She has very high stats now on JP, so definitely consider doing that. And last, I think, we got green, not blue, because I don't have it yet, and red Elaine. Green and red Elaine, our association with the new king, by the way, for resistance. This is the new Wing King and Melascula, and they give resistance stats. However, the other association for King is Matrona Diane, which we'll go over next. And my recommendation on this is a hard no, because you do get good defense and HP on Elaine, but we're still over a year into the game, and she has no weapon cosmetics, and it doesn't look like she's gonna get any weapon cosmetics. So my hard thing for her is, even though you're buying cosmetics for your Elaine, and you have a lot of cosmetics, and you're gonna get a lot of free-to-play cosmetics for her, I'm going to tell you no, do not try to max out an Elaine. Don't go for a 6-6 Elaine. It's really not going to be enough, because you're not going to get enough attack for those units, and the units that you really want to attack on, like King, you're not going to get enough out of. Next up, we got Galand, blue and red Galand. Now, one of these units is a coin shop unit. The other one we're going to see a lot in the part 2 banner. Galand is a really interesting unit. The total amount of stats Galand has is really high. On his Super Awakening, though, he gets a very mid amount of stats, so it's not a crazy amount of stats. Very high attack and defense in his final rank, but kind of mid on HP. But he already starts with a very, very high HP value. So you get a lot of stats into really, really good stat stick for support. But unfortunately, his only association is Melascula, and he hasn't got any new associations going forward, so he's not really a great unit for association. I would say that for going forward, he's a unit that you can definitely skip unless you're looking for a stat stick unit that for like a bunch of units on your team. He's a very high stat stick unit, but I would say you could skip unless you're looking to max out all the cosmetics on Galand. All right, and the last unit of the day, of course, is one of the most important. It's going to be green, blue, and red Matrona Diane. Now, all three of which are very, very exceptional units for association for King, and they have decent overall stats. They have about 500 attack, 3 defense, 67 HP, very mid on the stats, very mid-high, I would say, on overall stats. For the character for Super Awakening, let's go look at that as well. For Super Awakening stats that she gains, she gets a very mid amount of stats as well. Very low amount of attack too, so kind of a bad thing. But unfortunately for Diane is that you kind of have to max her, because she's in association with two very cool units that you use and you should be using, of course, is Blue King, Green King, or Red King, and for a combination attack unit. And the other unit is Valenti, and the thing she provides in Valenti is defense, which is really, really nice. But with Valenti, unfortunately, there are only two big associations. It's Lilia for crit resistance, and of course, you can use Matrona Diane for defense. Matrona Diane is a much better option than Lilia for association for Valenti, because you're going to get defense out of it, but you might already have a King Max. So if you are going to be using a Blue King, Green King, or Red King in PvP, you're definitely going to need to max one of these units. Now, which one should you max between Blue, Red, and Green? Green is the overall best unit, but it's only available on part 2, whereas Blue and Red are available on part 1. Which one should you max? The one you get the most dupes of. Alright guys, my name is Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did enjoy the video, of course, like and subscribe, all the fun stuff, and you get the great rest of your day. Peace.